Hello and welcome back to Ready, Steady, DIY. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you've already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. Well, in 10 days, I have to move, so I'm getting everything packed up and ready to go. As you can imagine, I'm pretty busy. Among all the stuff I own, one of the things that's going to be particularly difficult to move is my record collection. Today, in this video, I'm going to show you how I'm packing up my record collection in order to move. And hopefully, when I get there, I can relax and listen to a record basking in my new home. So there's a few things to go over. Let's get going. So the first step in all of this is to make sure before I do anything that all the records in my collection are absolutely and perfectly clean. I've recently acquired a few records from a flea market and I've been sort of letting them stack up before I do a batch of cleaning. I'm going to make sure that batch of cleaning is done. Sometimes those records can be really dirty. If there's any dust or grime or dirt on the surface of the record and then you jam it in a box with a bunch of other records and it bangs around in there, that dust or grime or dirt can grind into the grooves and cause some damage. So I'm definitely going to make sure that all the records are clean before I proceed any further. Oh, and hey, if you've never wet cleaned records before, I have a video on how I do that with a spin clean. I'll put a link to it for you, just in case you want to check that out. I'm also going to use the opportunity to make sure that everything's organized properly. I'm embarrassed to say, occasionally a record goes back in the wrong spot. My goal in all of this is to put all these records into the boxes, label them properly on the top so that when I get there, I can put them onto the shelf and know that they're in order. If I do it all now, I don't have to do it all later. Let's face it, later, there's a lot to do. So organizing everything, making sure it's clean before I start, that's only going to make my life easier at the other end. I'm also going to call my insurance company, just touch base, make sure that everything's covered in this move so that if there is an incident, they know I have a record collection and they're going to cover it the way I think they will. So now the records have to go into a box. First rule of thumb with that, the only things that are going to go into the box that I choose are 12-inch records. I am not going to put 12-inch records and 7-inch records into the same box. I am not going to put 12-inch records and CDs into the same box. I'm not going to stuff t-shirts in there. I'm not going to put books in there. There's just 12-inch records going into this box. And then the question is, which box? So the box that I normally use is a box that a lot of people use when they're moving records. It's the U-Haul small moving box. These boxes I have found to be really excellent for moving records, and it's mostly because of their size. These boxes are 12 5/8 of an inch by 12 5/8 of an inch, which is the perfect size for sliding a record in. They fit in comfortably, snugly, they don't move around too much. It's really good. They are 16 3/8 inches long, which means they'll hold about 80 records, which to me creates a package that is just kind of perfect. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. You feel like you've got a real load going, so one box at a time. You don't feel like you're wasting a trip, but it's also not too heavy to pick up for me. If you don't like heavier loads, then maybe a smaller box would do, but to me, this is the perfect size to move records. About 80 at a time. The other company that makes really great record moving boxes is Uline, but I have found that they have really high quantities, like you have to buy 100 at a time, that kind of thing. You can buy single boxes at U-Haul. It's a little more expensive, but you can do it. So the first thing you want to do after you've selected the box is to tape up the bottom as well as you can. The U-Haul boxes are pretty handy. They have handles in the side, which I always feel is better because otherwise you're cupping it at the bottom. And if you have an incident where you lose your balance while you're walking, you're trying to go up some stairs, someone walks in front of you, you have to stop suddenly. It's a lot harder to hold that than it is to hold a box that has handles. So the handles are a real plus. But if you're holding a box by the handles, that means your hands are not under the box. So you're not going to feel if the bottom of the box is starting to give way. So you want to make sure that the box is taped up properly at the bottom before you pick it up. So I'm going to tape these up really well, and then I'm going to start putting records inside. Incidentally, packing boxes have tabs that connect the top flaps together. You can cut them if you want, but it's a good idea to leave them linked and fold open the box like this. Then you can flip over the box and work on taping up the bottom. If you do it that way, the flaps will stay out of the way while you're loading, and then you can just clip them, fold the flaps closed when you're done, and tape it up. I have moved with these boxes before and simply just pulled my records off the shelf, put them in the box, and moved them. There were no incidents with damage. I really believe the most important thing with moving anything is making sure that the case or the box that you put it in is the perfect size. Once you get the perfect size and there's no opportunity for the object inside to bang into the inner walls of whatever you've put it into, it's generally going to work well. But there are two kinds of damage you might not foresee when you're moving records. There is an issue of seam splitting. So let's say you've packed your records into your vehicle and the records are sitting parallel to the length of that vehicle. So the front edge of each record is facing the front of the vehicle. but the vehicle has an incident and someone has to slam on the brakes really hard. Obviously, because of momentum, everything in the car is going to lurch forward. In that moment, the record inside, if it's not perfectly secure inside the jacket, is going to want to skid forward and kiss into the inner edge of the record jacket. This can cause a split in the jacket. So a lot of people prefer to remove the inner sleeve and the record from the jacket, lay them one on top of the other, slide them both back into the vinyl outer sleeve, and then pack them away. This is a very common way to send a record on eBay or wherever you happen to be. If you're selling records, that's a very, very common way to do it. A lot of people feel like when they're moving, since they're going to be with their records, it's not really necessary to do because they're going to treat them much more gently than FedEx or UPS. As I say, I have moved and not done that technique and never had an issue. But this time when I do it, I think I'm going to try. My records are getting older. I live in an area where there are a lot of used records. I've been buying a lot of used records. The jackets are old and I don't want to risk it. So I'm going to pull each and every record out of its jacket. I'm going to leave it in its inner sleeve, which is an acid-free sleeve. I'm going to lay it on top of the record jacket and slide that back into the vinyl cover and then put those into each box. And when I do that, when I put the records into the outer sleeve, I'm going to make sure that the opening for the outer sleeve is facing up. And when I put all those records into the box, I'm going to make sure that I specifically label what side of the box is the top so that when I open them up at the other end, there are no surprises. Just like with your record collection on the shelf, I am not going to overstuff the boxes. That's really important because if the records are smushed up against each other, you're going to end up crushing the jackets. You could potentially end up causing some ring wear, causing a ring-shaped indentation. You don't want that. So I'm going to make sure when I load these boxes up that I've got just the right amount so that they look like they're snug and comfortable, but not crammed. And then finally, when I pack them in my van, I'm going to make sure that there's nothing on top of them that's too heavy. I'm going to make sure that there's nothing above them that could fall on them or something that could keel over and hit them. Just common sense is required for packing a vehicle when you're packing records. So I'll let you know how this all goes in the comment section below. If anything goes awry, you'll find it down there. But otherwise, I'm hoping this move goes smoothly, and when I'm all done, I can listen to some excellent records in my new place in peace and comfort. Wish me luck! So I hope that helped you out. If it did, please feel free to like or subscribe. Liking or subscribing really helps out a channel, and if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Moving records is something that a lot of people have strong opinions on. I want to hear yours. And while I'm at it, obviously I have more than just records to move. I don't know if you remember any of the videos that I did in the past about my vintage gaming collection, but I gotta move some vintage cartridges. So if any of you have any tips, feel free to leave that in the comments section too. And otherwise, take care, stay safe, have fun with your DIY projects, and I'll see you next Saturday.